What have you learned?
What have I learned? Two things. Uh, Honestly, I don't know whether first thing is make sense or not.
Do you
I
have
think last
questions?
time, yeah. So first thing would be, I think in our last session we were discussing whether that does there exist a substance to anything at all, and then we realized, or at least I realized that I only have five senses.
You only
There
have your
is no way I
senses.
can. Yes. Then how can I know something as substance? So from that, I realized that whatever senses I have, like when I touch something solid, there is a thought on top of the sense of touching this,
There's a
the
thought on top of it, yeah.
that says this is solid. It's pretty subtle because I have been trained so much with that I don't even notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And this realization came all of a sudden. I don't know whether this is a realization or not, but it's just that
Sure it is. I
weird thing
mean,
that,
philosophers from the beginning of time and up to Descartes realize that you can't rely on your senses to reliably inform you about the world. Because just
yeah,
like there's optical illusions,
yeah,
there's illusions of sound and feeling and everything else, right?
yeah. Like for example, when I'm seeing you from the screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
In reality, it's just a 2D screen. Yet, I know there is some depth. There are books at the back of
You think there is
you.
some depth.
Yes, but in reality, it's just a 2D thing. Like even my screen is 2D,
Mm-hmm.
or it's there is no depth to it, but I infer depth from it. So
Are you familiar with the holographic principle?
no,
The holographic principle states that you could have all the information from a 3D object on a 2D surface. So in the old days, back in the 70s when we were doing holograms, you take laser light, you split it up in such a way and you refract it in such a way you could create a 3D image of something in light. Now I think they're using more tricks and things like that, but a true hologram is basically a 2D representation of a 3D thing, but it looks entirely 3D. So, but where the holographic principle comes in is I think it was Stephen Hawking's thought that all of the information, and others, thought that all of the information that went into a black hole would be preserved on the outside of that black hole, or something like that.
I vaguely remember
Why
something
don't you look it
about
up real
Hawking
quick? Look up the
radiation.
holographic principle real quick. Actually, I
Okay.
shouldn't talk. I mean, I think it is. Yeah, the information is conserved on the outside, I believe. I'm not an astrophysicist, obviously.
Holographic principle proposes that the information contained in a volume of space
Okay, speak
can be
slowly so people
described.
can get it, so we can get the captions too. Proposes that the volume, and then what? Go ahead.
Yeah, the holographic principle proposes that the information contained in a volume of space can be described by a theory that operates on the boundary of that region.
Okay.
Dimensionality, it suggests that three-dimensional universe can be encoded on a two-dimensional surface,
Boom.
similar to how 2D hologram can represent a 3D image.
There you go.
I mean, honestly, that's what games do.
Correct. Except they don't do physicality yet. So
Yeah,
you can represent. So the universe would, let's say a section of the universe goes into a black hole. I think what it means is that that information is conserved. So what's the
What do you
difference
mean
between
when
information
information
and
is
energy?
conserved?
What's the difference between information and energy?
So information, I would say, is something I interpret.
Okay.
It's
Like the position of an
it's
electron.
yeah.
Okay. Now what's energy?
Energy is energy. It's absolute. What is it?
What is energy?
Yes.
Let's just take a simple example like electrical.
Yeah.
It's the position of electrons.
Not necessarily position. I would say work getting done by electrons. So there is movement there.
Okay, but okay, so in now these are just suggestions for you to like do your own work, right? But I believe that in the new science of information, the new, last century or so, they're saying that energy and information are interchangeable theoretically because what energy is the transfer of information from one place to another. Like if you look at entropy, if you look at, okay, let's take a hot balloon with all the molecules bouncing around. There's more entropy, right? So it takes more information to describe the contents of that balloon. So the balloon is full of
Yeah.
information. But you could describe the inflated balloon with hot air as having more kinetic energy or having more information, which is required to describe the movement of the particles, right?
Yeah. In a sense, I would say it's because you can't compress it
Okay,
because the data is so random that you can't compress it.
right.
So
But
you
if that
have to
were to
keep it
cool
as
off, what would happen to the amount of information in that
it
balloon?
will decrease because you can compress things.
Okay, so what would be fun for you to, you're a young man, there's a whole new world for you to explore and flower into. You may want to look into information theory and physics and the what is being proposed in terms of the way we describe energy and kinetic and potential and all kinds of other things in terms of information. But I digress. I just want to make sure that you're aware of the holographic principle.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's get back to your senses. So your senses, you're saying you can't apprehend the world except through your senses.
Yeah. And these senses are not static. Like these were never static. It keeps flowing. Yet I have thoughts about things being static.
Correct. Is there anything static in this universe? Anything at all?
No.
Okay,
Right?
so the Greek philosopher that first described that, the one that's known for this, is his name is Heraclitus. A man cannot step into the same river twice. It's not the same man and it's not the same river. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So are you a static object? Are you static?
No. And yet
Correct.
I do that. Yet I believe that.
Yeah, you're a process or you're a group of processes.
So that's what I think. I am a process in the sense that senses come, and same goes to thoughts as well. Thoughts don't stick around, it keeps moving, it comes. Yet,
Nothing stays in this universe.
but yet there are same kind of thoughts keep repeating, right?
What,
Or
the thought
is
of a
it because
mountain?
I
The thought of a
classify?
mountain?
Yeah,
Okay, well, that mountain's going to, what's going to happen to that mountain eventually?
it will phase out and something new will come up.
Correct. It's just a matter of time scale. And so that's why the Avatamsaka is so important in order to be able to think. The Flower Ornament Sutra is so important and able to be able to think straight. Because we tend to think in terms of objects. You see yourself as an object. You see the world as an object, right? You see me as an object. But that's not true. It's just a matter of your time scale, right?
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by time scale? You mean that those objects destroy themselves because they are out of context?
Let's take an oak tree. That looks like an object, does it not?
Yes.
Now let's do time-lapse photography of an oak tree, where every year will be 5 seconds.
Yeah, it grows and eventually it dies.
In 2 minutes,
withers
in
away.
2 minutes, it's gone. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, something like that. In the matter of minutes, that oak tree has come and gone, just like the clouds,
Yes.
just like the mountains, just like the birds and the insects, like us. We're mayflies in terms of the universe. So I know it's not easy to think in these ways, but that's what this book is about helping you to do. Did we cover time lifespan last time?
No, and honestly, that's what I was thinking, that without memory or thought on top of these, there will be no time. Because if only thing I have is our senses, then
Beautiful. Excellent.
there honestly should not be any time. But yet I do feel there exists time, and
What's the difference
then there are
between
other
time and
things.
change?
Honestly, change implies time.
Exactly. So you insert the time part. Time
Yeah.
is what the mind make. I don't know if this is right or not. I'm just saying it's coming off the top of my head. But time is what the mind presumes when it notices change.
Yes. I think this was the Zeno's paradox, one of the Zeno's paradox, right? Or nudge stance. When you
Okay.
throw an arrow,
Okay.
it
If
moves
you
from one position
if
to
you like,
another.
truth is always truth, so it'll fit. I'm sure. I haven't thought it out, but it'll fit because time is emergent. It's not fundamental. And time is completely relative too, right? And because it's relative, it can't be fundamental.
Why is it relative? Can't we have absolute time from the Big Bang? But that's just a theory. I can't prove that.
It's a pretty hefty theory, but okay. I mean, so let's say what is it, 14 billion years or something, or is that the Earth?
Yeah.
The Big Bang, about 13 and a half,
I
14 billion
don't know.
years.
I have to check.
Okay, what unit of time do you want to make that?
100 billion?
100 billion?
100 billion? I think it's showing approximately 13.8 billion years.
That's the Earth?
At least. No, the Big Bang.
13.8 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, so what unit of time would you want to make that?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
Well, you said it was a unit of time, a measure of time.
Yeah.
Let's give it a name.
No, I didn't say unit of time. I said we can have absolute unit of time, right? We don't need to. But it's still relative to start of universe.
Yes.
But
But if you wanted to, you could make that into a unit of time, 13.8 billion years. We
yeah.
could call it a nour, N-O-U-R. But can you see how it's completely, absolutely relative, as Einstein showed?
But relative to what?
To whatever you want to make it relative to. In the case of the universe, we're making it relative to years. And we're saying that, well, it would take this many years. And then how many hours would that be? And how many seconds would that be? And how many nanoseconds? And how many fermiseconds would that be? We can cut it up any way you want. It's still arbitrary.
Yeah, these are just measurements, and I think there are those
Correct. Very good.
Standard measurements for seconds as well. So in a way, we are saying, I think there was some measurement for second. I think time taken by light to travel 1 by c time.
17,000 miles per second or something like that.
Yeah. So that is considered to be a 1 second. So whenever we talk about years, it's always in relation to that 1 second.
Okay. So it's relative.
Yeah.
And all this falls apart when you get down to the Planck intervals, right? Do you know what the Planck interval is? Okay, look up Planck interval. Read it out loud slowly.
Planck intervals are fundamental units of measurement in physics that are derived from fundamental physical constants. They represent the smallest meaningful units of various physical quantity. Here's a brief. Planck time. So it's approximately 5.39 into 10 power minus 44 seconds.
Okay.
That's pretty small.
So 10 to the minus 44 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Now, within that length,
yeah, I think the time it takes.
What happens to classical physics? What happens
to?
Yeah, what happens to classical physics?
It breaks down. That's too small.
It just breaks down, right?
We have to go to, yeah.
Okay. So it's not fundamental.
And it breaks down mostly because the things that we use to observe will deviate or will influence the experiment that we are performing at this scale.
But that's true always. But let's okay, so let's see. All right, we can go down that road instead. The things we used to observe won't work there, right? Because it's smaller than the wavelength of light or something. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can't be sure.
Okay. So what about the things we used to think?
So on one hand, the things that we think can't comprehend this whole universe, yet for some reason I totally believe it.
You believe what?
Whatever the content of the thought.
So if I told you there were little purple leprechauns crawling up a rainbow and they were throwing down graffiti, which was really gold coins, over the city of New York, you'd believe that thought?
No.
Okay. So you don't believe all thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I don't believe all thoughts. I believe some thoughts.
So how do you choose between the thoughts you believe and the ones you don't believe?
My past experience.
So by inference, remember the turkey on Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Remember the turkeys on Thanksgiving? You can't use inference.
Yeah, because
the past is no guide to the future, necessarily.
But isn't it though? Yet we can use it for predictions. Like we can still use.
Depends on what we're trying to predict.
Yeah, suppose you want to.
So what's your point about believing your thoughts? What is your point?
My point about believing my thoughts is they are correct sometimes.
Okay, and they're incorrect sometimes, right?
Yes, yet I'm unable to differentiate.
That's good. That's good. Just to acknowledge that. So now how do you tell the difference?
Only when that probable future arrives, only then we know what happens. Until then, everything's up in the air.
Almost everything.
What do you mean by almost?
Death comes to living creatures.
Yes.
To their bodies.
Yes.
Something is having an experience right now. An experience exists right now.
Yes.
So those are two things we know.
Yes.
Okay, so there's some things we do know. There is an experience at this moment. So we know that.
I had this weird question. I noted this down. Like
Okay.
this implies thought knows about awareness.
Thought knows about awareness? Or
Otherwise, how
awareness
can
knows
it
about
talk?
thought? Okay, let's sort that out. Which direction is it?
Both.
Oh, really?
Both.
Okay. Thought knows about awareness.
Yes. Because it's aware of the thought. But thought knows about awareness because without which, how can we talk about it? How are we able to talk
Okay.
about?
Let's take a thought. Let's take a thought and let's write it down.
Okay.
The thought is that lead and mercury heated to 1,000 degrees makes gold. Okay, so you write that
Okay.
down. Now, let's encode it in a computer, right?
Okay.
And let's write it down in a letter. Okay, let's put it on a piece of paper inside a book. Now, that thought exists still, does it not?
In a way, it only exists when I read that message.
Okay,
Or
so
it
how can
can
you say
exist
the
for someone.
thought is aware of experience? The thought is encoded information, is it not? I mean, you tell me. Can a thought be aware? I just showed you a thought that we could write down, we could encode, we could store in a book, on a piece of paper, in a letter, or in a computer. That thought still exists, but in a way it does not until it's touched by awareness, correct?
Yes.
Except that the computer can read it.
Yeah, but what does that matter?
It gives it instructions on what to do next.
So indirectly, yeah.
What's indirect about that? It's a program.
No, I didn't get the part about
Okay, we're trying to
computer.
Okay, tell me if I'm wrong, but we're trying to differentiate thought from awareness, right?
Yeah, like not necessarily thought from awareness. Like I know that thought and awareness are different
Okay, how are they different?
because I'm aware of these thoughts.
Okay, good. Can the thoughts be aware?
But thoughts need not be aware, but they
Okay.
can point to this
Okay,
awareness.
good. Okay, that's fine. That's good. That's fine. But they themselves are not aware. They themselves are not experienced.
Yeah, they themselves as such, no.
Okay. All right, so let's get back to awareness now. Or whatever questions you might have. It's a very mysterious and marvelous universe you find yourself in, young man. And don't make assumptions, but let's keep going.
Yeah, I think I get what you're trying to say. Is my thought aware of my awareness? That assumes that thought is some entity that is aware of my awareness, but it can point to it. That's what almost all the things do.
It usually points away from it, but that's okay. Okay. Okay, good. You got it.
Yeah. So continuing on
So a
that,
thought kind
I
of is
was
information, right?
honestly yes, and I still think that thought is just
I
my
really,
brain configuration.
I really hope that you spend some time and learn about 21st century physics in which information takes much of the role that energy used to. Energy is just a word, right?
Yeah,
It's a concept. Information is a way of describing something too.
honestly, information for me is the conversion from material things to thoughts, because information at the end of the day is interpretations.
So I'm asking you to broaden your definition of information. Like, let's take a quantum experiment. The location of the
Okay.
particles, the location of the photons is information.
Yes.
And then when this experiment is conducted and, quote, the quantum curve, what do they call it? The quantum curve, the quantum wave collapses, then
Mhm.
then there's less information because the experimenter and the particle and the experimenting device are all entangled now. So I just encourage you to learn about it because it's so much fun. It's really beautiful. There's a lecture from Boston, a guy named Chris Fields. Chris Fields, Field, about information and physics. It's a whole lecture series. It's really quite nice.
Okay.
It's being done at it's at Harvard and Tufts, I think. It's a joint program that Michael Levin's group is heading up, and they invited him to give a talk on information, current thoughts on information theory. Chris Fields. Okay, questions. We're getting a little too dry
Yeah, so I
for most
was,
folks in the audience.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was thinking a bit more about, like, so I was thinking thought is real when it happens, like it's happening right now. But is its content real as well? So,
What do you mean by
like we
real?
were just,
What do you mean by real?
do I mean by real? Something that I'm aware of
Okay.
right
I
now.
just want to make sure we're using the same language. Okay, something you're aware of right now.
Yes.
Okay.
So, with that definition, because thoughts are just labels about things, so the labels of the thoughts or content of the thought is real when I'm thinking about that thought, whatever it is.
Say that again.
So, the objects of thoughts are real when I'm thinking about it or when
Okay.
I'm aware of their thoughts.
Okay.
But the things
So then a
pointed by
rainbow
it,
is real if you see it.
yeah, because I'm aware
Okay.
of it, yeah,
And
it is.
the mirage of water in the desert, that would be real by this definition. Okay, keep going. Hallucinations would be
Yes, the
real.
thing that I'm seeing, yeah, the thing that I'm seeing is real. There could be various labels for it, there could be various inferences for it, but those are just labels or labels of the universe, and that need not. This is where I'm getting caught up. That these are still labels, yet why do I believe them to be real? Why do I
Bad
like
habit?
when I
Bad habit?
bad habit? So basically conditioning.
Yeah. And so what you need to do is replace it with another way of thinking or another habit, a better habit, something more closer to the real.
Yeah, I think this is the another thing that I was
Also,
thinking
they need
of.
to serve you,
That
right? You want to live in a world that serves you,
yeah,
that
whatever
works
serves
towards
you.
growth and happiness and peace.
Yeah,
Not one that's, all depressed and suicidal and self-destroying. You don't want to create a world that's destructive. And this is what many people do, and the world does extremely well, unfortunately. It creates an environment where thought works against the human instead of for the human.
yeah.
And
But
so
I think that's
over the ages, there's been several schemes of thought, schemes, traditions of thought that have been shown to be very, very healthy, salutary, good, and others that are bad.
yeah,
Nazism's bad. Tibetan Buddhism's good for the human. I mean, one leads to
yeah,
destruction, the other one leads to salvation.
yeah,
The same things with Christianity and Islam. I mean, in their good form, in their pure forms. Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, many branches of it, Buddhism. These things are they're operating systems for the mind, for the individual mind, and for the society. Christianity, especially, I suppose, and Islam, and Judaism.
but I think that is just one type of thoughts, I would say, whose content is real. These thoughts point to the truth.
Correct.
Thoughts. So it's like from the perspective of a non-awakened person, it feels like they have a series of thoughts, sequence of thoughts,
Hmm.
with some intervals of no thoughts, especially when you are in a deep sleep. And then there are sequence of thoughts, and eventually something happens, and these sequence of thoughts eventually point that person to the truth.
If they're working with a decent operating system, if they're not working with a deeper operating system, it points them in the opposite direction. Look at Nazi Germany. Look at the history of mankind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very easy to have a system of thought that points you straight to hell, and we can see that. Just study history. Look at Mao in China.
Yeah.
Look at Stalin in Russia. These were operating systems that did not work, collectively
Yeah.
or
Honestly.
individually. That's why it's important. That's
Yeah.
why I'm here, because if your generation gets the wrong operating system, we're all headed to hell, collectively.
Okay.
That's what some people
Yeah.
call the battle between good and evil, right? The battle between an operating
Yes.
system that is constructive and nourishing and uplifting and serves not only the individual but the collective, and one that may look that way but is not that way at all. It's actually destructive for the individual and the collective. But you guys have to decide what you want to do. But I hope you don't decide to destroy yourselves like the 20th century did to so many millions and millions of people. That's another reason why this work is so important.
Yeah. And I think the reason why I'm asking all this is because, like, when something bad happens or I feel bad, anything, I feel uncomfortable, I start thinking about things. And these days, what I say is, it's just a thought. It's not real.
Very good. Very
But,
good.
but again,
Thoughts are generally junk.
that still is a belief. Sorry?
Generally, thoughts are junk. They're not
Yes,
even
but
yours.
again,
They're
that
not even
still
your thoughts. Do thoughts happen to you, or do you have happen to thoughts?
thoughts happen to me. That is
Okay, all
something
right.
that I
Well
was
then,
going to
okay. So
come
look at
at.
it that way for a while. Try looking at it that way. See how it goes. These thoughts have
But
come from
yet,
God knows where, but from the history of
Yeah.
humanity and the current, humanity I was raised with. It's the collective, repository consciousness. It's the garbage that we inherited along with the good stuff. And these thoughts occur to me in these individual forms, but they're not my thoughts. They're from the devil.
But isn't that itself a thought?
Yeah, that
Isn't
is a
this
thought.
thinking
Yeah,
itself
yeah.
a
Get rid
thought?
of that one too. Eventually, just toss that thought too. What do you think Krishnamurti means when he says that the troubles of mankind are due to thought, to man's thought? When you build on, this is what the Taoists, Tao, Taoists mean. When they say do not rely on thought, rely on the Tao, rely on what's obviously already designed to work beautifully, perfectly. The planet, Gaia, nature. It works seamlessly. It doesn't need thought. The thought is extra. You see, so when you rely on thought too much, and you rely on thought for the wrong things, then you get into trouble, right?
Yeah, but I don't think I can disentangle myself from thought because it's way too subtle, and
You
it's
don't have to
like,
disentangle yourself. Just watch
then
them
what
come
can
and
I
watch
do?
them go. Yourself has nothing to do with thought. Your true self, thought is nothing to your true self. It's far less than the trees and the birds and the sky and the clouds. To your true self.
My reasoning with all this is that, again, whenever I say that it's just a thought, that again assumes that there is a belief that thoughts are not real,
Well, see, that's another
or it's
thought. That's another thought. It's just
yeah,
a thought is another thought. So
that's another.
let them all just go by. All of them. Good, bad, and different. Let them all go. Just let them, they'll just pass by. You ever walked into somebody's house and they have the TV on, they're listening to Fox News or something, or CNN or something, and it's just kind of going in the background? They're just talking and talking and talking, and they won't shut up or whatever. That's thought. Just ignore it. Just do something else.
But isn't the act of doing something else itself a thought
Depends on what you're
directed?
doing. Depends on what you're doing.
Is it necessary to demonize thoughts for awakening? I don't know.
I didn't say demonize them. I don't mean demonize them. I mean just basically ignore them most of the time. Just like CNN and Fox on somebody's TV in their living room. You walk in, you walk out. Okay, this it's going to be on. It doesn't matter what they say. Whatever they say in 2 days, everyone will have forgotten it. And the same thing's true with your thought. I mean, where are your thoughts from 2 months ago? 99.99% of them, where are they? They're in the garbage where they belong. No, I shouldn't say garbage. They just don't pay attention to them, that's all. Let them come, let them go. Occasionally there'll be something beautiful, but very rarely.
But who
You could take that one.
categorizes it
Pardon me?
as beautiful?
I'm sorry?
But who categorizes it as beautiful? It's again a thought.
It'll be obvious. And if it's not obvious, just let it go. Thoughts are
So
really
this is
compared to nature, to God, to Tao, to love and beauty and truth. Thoughts are paltry, hideous little things. But see, you have nothing to compare it to yet. Sounds like. But when you're an old man, you'll realize I've had how many thoughts? Didn't I do a tweet where I calculated the number of thoughts in a human lifetime?
I don't see one. Was it way back?
No, it was about 4 days ago.
Oh, no. I see the one. Yeah.
How many thoughts does a human have in a day? Roughly.
I think as per your calculation, it's around 50,000 thoughts per day.
50,000 thoughts per
But
day. That's conservative, okay? So how many is that in a lifetime?
Honestly, yeah, but honestly, that assumes there is a way to separate two thoughts, but I don't know whether that's even
It's
possible.
a consensus of people that studied this stuff. I'm not saying it's, 50,000, 100,000, 25,000, doesn't matter. The point is, it's a lot
Yeah.
of thoughts. And what do they all add up to? Oftentimes suffering and rancor and bitterness. This is why
Yeah,
Krishnamurti,
that's
why he keeps talking about all our problems come from the mind of man, from the thoughts of man. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. I was a psychiatrist in my last life. What do you think people suffered from more than anything, all other things combined?
imagined
Their
scenarios.
thoughts.
Yeah. So coming
And
on to
even our
the
greatest theories, I really do think you're going to like this information science, this information theory and physics, the physics of information, because you got a background in computer science and it's just beautiful stuff. But even that is a paltry thing compared to reality. The reality is so much more enormous than anything human thought can even imagine. So you just leave one field and go into another field, the field of reality, the realm of reality.
I think this is where I wanted to discuss about this Zeno's paradox. I think one of it.
All right, go ahead.
I think one of it was to move from point A to point B,
Mm-hmm.
one has to reach the midpoint of A to B.
Right.
Then you keep doing it, you keep halving it.
Mm-hmm.
So because of this, yeah, because that will go to infinity.
Right.
So either you can never reach from A to B at all because it will take infinite steps.
In theory, you cannot reach there.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yet you do reach it.
Right.
And my reasoning for it was thought cannot comprehend infinity.
Can
In this case,
computation
infinitely
computation
small.
can't comprehend infinity either.
Yeah.
So computation and thought both hit a hard limit. Boom, right there.
I don't know yet. I still hang on to things. So another thing that I hang on to is I have control. I want control.
Who has
Yet
control?
that's the thing. I was thinking a bit about it.
You
To have
do,
a
you do.
control.
You can decide whether you're going to have a good life or a mediocre life or a crappy life. You have that control. You can choose to suffer or not suffer.
But that how I feel like
In order for me to explain it to you, you'd have to join the team of Beyond Suffering. That's the problem. Have you read any more of the Avatamsaka?
yeah, yeah.
What page are you on?
I think I'm at page 220.
All right. You want to read a little bit to the audience?
Yeah, sure.
Why don't you read, say, 4 paragraphs real quick?
Okay. So I think it
But
goes
let them
above this.
absorb this. Let them see what's being done here with the mind, and the sophistication of this, and that they know that this is a psychoactive text that's designed to expand your mind and to free your mind and to teach you as well at the same time. But in order to even think like these guys at the level of these folks, you need to expand your mind first, right? So the thing about living a life of suffering versus a life of without suffering requires that you have a big enough mind, right? And so this is going to help people stretch their minds. All right, go ahead. This
Yeah.
is the
So
the
above
Flower
this-
Bank World. This is the Flower Bank World book. What book is it in this?
I think it's fifth.
Fifth book, the fifth book in the Avatamsaka Sutra, a priceless sutra translated into English. by a brilliant, enlightened translator in the 20th century. God bless him. May he rest in peace. And so go ahead.
So, above this, past worlds as many as atoms in a Buddha field is a world called repository of undefiled flames, shaped like a row of jewel lamps, resting on a sea of banks of jewel-like flames, covered by clouds of various bodies constantly raining perfume, surrounded by as many worlds as atoms in 8 Buddha fields. The Buddha is called invincible power of wisdom. Above this, past worlds as many as atoms in a Buddha field is a world called sublime pure sound, shaped like a fort,
Feel fought, yep.
resting on a sea of jewel raiment, covered with clouds of drapes adorned with all flowers, surrounded by as many worlds as atoms in 9 Buddha fields. The Buddha is called enormous eyes like the clear moon in the sky. Above this, past as many worlds as atoms in a Buddha field, is a world called sounds as numerous as atoms, shaped like the net of Indra, resting on a sea of waters of all precious elements, covered by clouds of jeweled canopies of all musical sounds, surrounded by as many worlds as atoms in 10 Buddha fields. The Buddha is called Golden Mountain Lamp. Above.
You want to do another? The word,
Yeah,
okay, we're going to run into the word Fylfot, Fylfot. It's a geometric shape. Okay, keep going.
Above this, past as many worlds as atoms in a Buddha field, is a world called array of jewel colors, shaped like Fylfot, resting on a sea of gems shaped like the king of the gods, covered by clouds of flowers radiant as the sun, surrounded by as many worlds as atoms in 11 Buddha fields. The Buddha is called radiant knowledge illuminating the cosmos.
One more paragraph.
Okay. Above this, as many as worlds as atoms in a Buddha field is a world called golden light, shaped like a huge castle, resting on a sea of ornaments made of all jewels, covered by clouds of jewel flowers from scenes of enlightenment, surrounded by as many worlds as atoms in 12 Buddha fields. The Buddha is called banner of precious lamps lighting earth.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So the text is gradually expanding your mind, stretching it, and giving you a new operating system. One that's much closer to reality, by the way. The book ends with in the realm of reality. So in terms of your free will and who's doing what, you have the choice to decide what kind of life you want to have. You have complete freedom in that regard. And you should be grateful for that. But that's what's given to mankind, is that choice. Many things are not given to us, like knowing when we're going to die, or knowing where we are in space, or the scheme of all those thousands of worlds, etc., or how many worlds there are.
But do I really have choice? Like, I get you are saying these things, and that will influence my future decisions to make better choices. But still,
Maybe.
at the end of the day,
Maybe not.
it will take some time, and eventually, I don't know. But
Okay, I think it will too. But this is where Jesus comes in very, very nicely. Do you know his parable of where a farmer throws some seeds, and some land on the ground, some land on a rock, and some land on some dry, unfertile ground, some lands on some rocky soil, and some lands on fertile soil. Right?
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't.
I feel bad not being able to quote that very well. But basically, you get to choose what kind of soil you're going to be. But it's only through the grace of God that you have that choice, frankly. Because I can't say that to every human, that they have a choice. Many people are born in places that are not conducive to waking up or to learning and to improving themselves and the people around them. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yes.
So final questions before we stop?
Yeah, this was more of a curious question.
Okay.
Like right now, I think my awareness is at behind my eyes, but again, that's because that's what I see through.
What about your awareness of
But
taste? Where's your awareness of taste?
a bit lower
Okay, where's your awareness of the
But I
pressure
think-
on your feet right now?
on my feet, but
So it's not just behind your eyes, it's on your feet, behind your mouth. Where's your awareness of the lungs in your chest?
on inside my lungs.
Yeah, so your whole body is aware, right?
So there are two parts of awareness. The
Okay.
the one part is
Okay, good.
or, no.
No, it's good,
Or-
good. I like it. It's fun.
So
It's good.
So-
There's two parts of awareness.
for me, it's like there are sensors, kind of, on in my lungs. That's one
Sensations.
end of it. Yeah, and there is another end, or I don't know whether that's an end at all. And it's where my awareness is. That's what I feel like, because
What about
that's how I am aware.
what about perceptions in addition to sensations?
Perceptions? Perception? What do you mean by perception?
To
Like
perceive
seeing,
something. Yeah.
vision.
I perceive a leaf blowing in the wind.
Yeah,
God, is it lovely?
it's done via.
I'm sorry?
It's done via my eyes.
Okay,
And
now what about memory?
again, it's memories and thoughts are like, it's like visionless vision. Thought, like,
Okay, and what about your
Soundless
fantasies
sound.
about the future?
again, the same thing. It's,
Okay, good. So now,
it lies.
so there are these sensations in your body, perceptions, memories, fantasies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, anything you want to add to that list?
Memory, sensation. No.
Okay. And then we have this thing that you're calling awareness, right? And you say there's two kinds of awareness. What are they?
So not two kinds of awareness. I was just thinking it had two components, or it's more about how sensors work. Sensors,
Those are the content of awareness. Don't mistake the container for the content. Awareness contains all of that and much more. Awareness contains the universe. It contains everything that you see, everything that you feel, perceive. It contains me, my voice right now. So that is awareness. But the content is me moving my hands here, or a thought going through your mind, or a memory popping up, or a fantasy about the future. That's just that's content. Now, where you want to start living is in awareness itself. And then you'll see that just like the clouds that pass through the sky, or just like I came onto your screen and now I'll be off your screen, right? And just like everything else in your life, it will all come and go. But awareness stays always. It's our true only certainty, is that awareness, existence exists, is here right now.
yeah, I think there's no way to break it down though. Like it's like when I'm in a deep sleep, I know that I was aware.
See, but
Yeah,
when you say
that is a
you,
huge
when you say you, you're referring to a content of awareness. You're not referring to awareness, which is actually what you are. You're mixing up the content with the container. And this is where the Sufi books, Idris Shah, are very, very useful. I don't seem to have one right here. But you're confusing the container with the contents.
Yeah, I think
You yourself is an object within awareness. It's a thought complex, the self, the body, my memories, my thoughts, my world.
so. There's an overlay of it, and it's way too
Very
subtle
good. It's an
that I still
overlay
haven't.
in addition to the awareness. You've overlaid it with these other thoughts. Now, there's nothing wrong with them, right? And you need them, to go to work and make a living or whatever. But now I'm talking to the adult you, the actual you. Don't get the contents of awareness confused with awareness itself.
Yeah, but
Because you won't know who
I
you are.
haven't.
You won't know who or what you are. It may take a while. You'll get there. Especially if you keep reading the sutra. Good. And keep thinking like you're doing. Like keep asking questions about whatever you want. Just what you want to know is you want to understand reality. You want to know truth. And you're one of the fortunate women or men that has that as what matters to them in life is truth, beauty, love, God. All the same thing. Okay, sir? Anything else before we stop?
Yes. No.
All right. Hasta luego. Take good care.